Staying safe from swarms of bees. If you live in Arizona, then you know it is impossible to ignore or miss the swarms of bees that have been invading certain parts of the state. The thought of a cloud of bees can be intimidating, especially if you are allergic to bee stings. But when you follow practical advice, you can learn how to avoid bee problems and stay safe. Remember that Sexton Pest Control employees teams of the best Arizona bee experts who offers safe and effective ways for handling bees. What are bee swarms? Bee swarm. The large majority of bee swarms seen throughout the Phoenix area are made up of Africanized bees that were brought over to the United States in the mid-1990s. These bees tend to be more aggressive than the European honeybees we are used to seeing, and the Africanized bees also need to be on the move constantly because of their growing numbers. A bee swarm is created when a new queen bee decides to leave her existing hive and start a new colony. It is estimated that as many as 60% of the bees in an existing hive will swarm around the new queen and go off looking for a new home. Since there can be tens of thousands of bees in a given colony, swarms can become very large and dangerous. The population of a common bee swarm can reach as many as 50,000 bees, and the matter is made worse for Phoenix residents because of the aggressive nature of the bees local to the area. What does a bee swarm look like? Any Phoenix bee removal expert will tell you that you can hear a swarm of bees long before you see one. The fact that bee swarms can sometimes be difficult to see can explain why so many people have been injured in Arizona by bee swarms in recent weeks. A bee swarm, from a distance, can look like anything from another animal to a bush or tree. But as it gets closer, you will start to see the individual bees that are leading the way, and that is just before the swarm is on you. Why do swarming bees attack? A swarm of bees is only interested in finding a new home for themselves and their queen. The queen is at the center of the swarm, and she is giving off pheromones to communicate with her swarm. Pheromones are chemicals that are usually either given off by the queen, or transported through the feeding process. Bees on the outside of a swarm may no longer sense the pheromones from the queen, and that can cause them to get aggressive because they are assuming that the queen is gone. But that is not the only reason swarming bees attack. The aggressive bees in the Phoenix area work as a well-oiled machine. The workers build and maintain the nest, the drones protect the queen, and the scouts are out looking for a new place to build a nest. The drones do the day-to-day work of protecting the queen, but the entire swarm will attack if it feels the queen is truly threatened. That is why it is best to get out of the way of a swarm to avoid getting injured. Your only crime could be standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you could invite a swarm attack. Once one bee decides that you are threatening the queen, they will all attack. What to do if you encounter a bee swarm? The best approach in protecting yourself from a bee swarm is to get out of its way as it enters your area. If one bee decides to sting you because you got too close, then the swarm will attack. You should get indoors and avoid contact with a swarm at all costs. Many people try tactics such as pouring smoke or water on a swarm to dissipate it and kill the bees. A swarm consists of tens of thousands of bees that you cannot possibly take care of at once. If you did not pose any threat to the bees before you started dousing them with water, then you will certainly be seen as a threat after you try to drown them. Never attempt to dissipate a bee swarm because that is simply not possible. The swarm will remain around the queen as long as the queen is alive. If the queen is no longer there, then you have big problems as the bees will become more aggressive and angry. People who live in the Phoenix area can take steps towards decreasing the likelihood that they will be attacked by a swarm. During the bee season, avoid wearing a lot of cologne or perfume. If you are heading out to do some hiking, then avoid wearing shiny objects that could attract a swarm. All Phoenix residents should avoid wearing loose clothing during bee season that could look like an inviting place for bees to go. The most important things to remember if you see a swarm is to not make any sudden movements, do not panic and get to safety as quickly as possible. When to call for help from a bee swarm. Bees Control. Sexton Pest Control has the most experienced Phoenix bee removal specialists in the area. If you see a swarm of bees, don't hesitate, you should contact us immediately to let us handle the problem. We have a team of trained professionals who will assess the mood and size of the swarm. We will arrive prepared to completely handle the situation, and remove any danger from the area. You should never hesitate to call Sexton Pest Control when you see a bee swarm, because the swarm could decide to stay in your area for days as the scouts look for a new home. The longer you allow a swarm to stay in your area, the more dangerous the situation becomes. Contact Sexton Pest Control immediately for professional assistance in taking care of any bee swarming problem.